Hi, welcome to FireClue show. I am Sandy Archer. I'm the general manager of Fire Analysis, and I present my co-host,
Michael Slatman, and I am a past president of the International Association of Arson Investigators and the president of Fire Consulting and Case Review International. So what we do is we do fire investigations, and we also teach fire investigations all over the country. And we're lucky to have a great guest, and Sandy's going to talk about him.
So we are very honored to have David True with us today. He is a renowned novelist, author, and also it's because he was writing about his experiences and from his career. And he was in the Army, he was an ATF agent, he was a security manager and investigator. And we are so excited that he is coming on with us today to talk about his books that he's written, and he has a recent one as well. And we are going to bring him and Michael.
Yes, and so David is my friend. Full disclosure, he's my friend. We've worked together in many cases, and he was a supervising special agent for the ATF, and has worked all over the country. And we're going to talk about some of his cases, such as Oklahoma City and many others. So we'll just bring him on and let him tell you who he is and what he's doing. Okay.
All right. Here he comes. Hello.
Hello. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us today. We are so excited to talk to you about your novels that you've written and just all your experiences. So, Michael, what's your first question?
Well, David, you just retired. When did you retire from ATF?
1997.
And you worked for what? You worked for a trucking company, right? In security.
Yeah. After that retirement, I worked at Yellow Roadway Trucking as a manager of all the Midwest properties of Yellow Freight Executive Security.
Right, and you've been writing books too. You've written. Do you want us to? Because I have all your books, as you know, and I try to tell people about you all over the place. So now we're trying to get you worldwide exposure for your books. But do you want to talk about the books and what they were? So the first one was the Gangsters, Outlaws, and Mobsters, and I've got one of these, and you can hold it up if you want to, but this is more about your experiences in police and also the ATF. But you were first of all, you were a police officer. Well, tell us about your background. How did you get started in law enforcement?
Yeah, I'd like to do that. That would help us as we move along here with this talk.
Sure.
My background started in the military, Army. I was drafted in '66, and I became a specialist in Explosives Ordnance Disposal, which gave me that background that propelled my career for the rest of my entire professional career. I was an Army EOD guy, Explosive Ordnance and Disposal, more commonly known as Hurt Locker guys. And then I was stationed in Granite City, Illinois. And after that, I was a St. Louis police officer and then a homicide detective, a station with the Bomb and Arson Unit. And then in 1971, ATF hired me to work for them initially in St. Louis, Missouri area, and all over the Midwest. And then in 76, I was transferred to Kansas City office. And that's where I carried out the rest of my career as a supervisor, and then back on as a field agent, handling cases throughout the United States and occasionally South America.
So I have a question. Mike was also in St. Louis and then Kansas City. Did you guys meet each other then? When did you guys meet each other?
As I recall, and we're going back a few years, as you know, I recall we met at one occasion, possibly at a seminar, but our friendship really developed and flourished when I got to Kansas City, and we were part of the Kansas City Arson Crime Commission that we set up. And there was a number of us like-minded fellows and ladies that promoted the Kansas City Arson Task Force. And that's where we were very involved with each other on that end of the career. And then the other end, professionally, with cases, we had several cases throughout the Midwest that we worked on.
Okay. Yeah, I did not know that.
Yeah, and our careers kind of paralleled. I was in the Air Police, and then I got out and went into police work in St. Louis County in the Munis, and then got into an arson detective, and then I moved out to Kansas City, and that's where we met David at the Kansas City Arson Task Force, which still goes on today. Claire McCaskill, the senator, farmer senator, was part of that when she was a prosecutor in Jackson County. Now, David, so let's talk about your first book. Let's talk about the mobsters.
Well, can I ask my question first? What made you decide that you wanted to become a writer of these stories, and how did you get into that first?
Well, a few years ago, I got a call from headquarters, and the publisher contacted me that wanted to do the ATF memorable history of ATF. And he said, well, we learned you've got some pretty good cases. By the way, I call them adventures that I've had in my career. And I told them some of my stories, and they put it in that history book that included the Oklahoma City bombing and TWA Flight 800 and a couple of other selections that I picked out. And the main publisher said, you know, you got a lot of adventures. He even started joining me with that name. And he said, why don't you write a book? And I laughed and I said, well, I'm not an author. I'm a retired ATF agent. And he said, well, give it a try. If we like what you got, we'll publish it. I promise that. So I wrote a manuscript and had it edited out as best we could and delivered it to them. He called me in 2 days and he said, Dave, we're going to publish your book. And I said, well, Randy, I bought $450 worth of tapes on how to get published. And it says you got to send 10 manuscripts to 10 publishers before you get one read. You've had this book in 2 days and I'm getting published. He laughed. He says, yeah, in fact you are. And I said, well, I'm going to throw these tapes away. I don't think I need them anymore. It looks like.
That's great.
Yeah, that's a short story, but that's a truthful beginning on how I became an author, and now I've got 3 out that are selling very, very well. I'm happy to have them out, and I enjoyed doing the presentations throughout mainly Missouri now in the Midwest.
Right. Well, David, when you were in St. Louis, and particularly working with St. Louis PD and stuff like that, you went undercover also, did you not? And then working, or was that just with the ATF?
Yeah, it actually started with the ATF. When I got hired in St. Louis, I thought it was going to be expressly for my explosive background and taking bomb apart and working bomb cases and arson. And my first assignment was to work undercover in Granite City and in Madison and St. Clair County, Illinois, 2 bad locations that's has an awful lot of criminal environment. And so I spent my time there, starting in Madison, Illinois, and little did I know it, but I was going to spend the next 5 years of my life off and on in an undercover capacity in those areas and beyond.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, so let's talk about that book. There it is. And that's the Mobsters book. Now, this has got a lot of organized crime people here in it, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. I started out, what I have to do is define what this title means. Gangsters I identify as anybody that's a criminal that was involved in gangs in the early 1900s. This book covers 100-year history of American crime and criminals. Oh. And then the outlaws I address about bank robbers, train robbers, starting in the late 1800s. And then the mobsters are the mob bosses throughout the United States. and I focused in on the ones in Missouri and St. Louis area and Kansas City area throughout these chapters, and I waxed back between two of them to bring in as much as I can recall in my investigating the backgrounds of these characters, both men and women, and I found a fascination with tracing these guys, knowing I had worked on them personally and getting their complete history throughout their lives, their criminal lives.
In fact of the matter is, you grew up in an area that had some of the mobsters that were growing up with you at the same time. Is that right?
Yeah, I grew up in the inner city in St. Louis near the projects.
Yeah.
And I went to high school, and within that high school, we had guys that would become cops or criminals, most likely. And I grew up with a couple of them, the Leisure brothers, that became mob bosses and hitmen. One of the Leisures killed 8 people that we were aware of when we investigated. And
Wow.
his brother was a hitman for Paulie Leisure.
Wow. That's
So,
amazing.
Sandy, do you have something on?
Well, no, I mean, you said you grew up in the inner city. Well, Mike, so did you. Was it close by that you guys lived?
Oh,
or?
no. He was south and I was north. I was in North St. Louis, and so I was more of a ghetto.
I thought,
kid.
wow, okay, that's
I
interesting.
could walk to the Mississippi River before he could get to Kings Highway.
That's probably
St.
true.
Louis jargon.
Yeah, that's right. Nobody knows that but us. Anyway, so yeah, but it's true. I mean, strangely enough, we had the same kind of neighborhood. Our guys either became we became cops, gangsters, or priests. So the difference there you go. Okay.
So Dave, were you able to interview any of them from your book? I mean, were they open to talk to you, or how did you do that?
Well, I first started meeting some of them when I was working undercover in Madison County, Illinois. They had a couple over there, and I was posing as a small-time fence, and I had an old beat-up car, and in the trunk I would keep on the right handgun cases, rifle cases, and ammunition pouches, and I would meet all the taverns, all the bartenders first, and people that hung out there, mostly convicted felons, and they would come to my trunk and look at what I've got for sale in a very cheap dime on a dollar, and they'd say, "Oh, you sell guns?" I said, "No, actually, I got those cases so I can keep the guns, and that's for my mob buddies in St. Louis. I take the guns back to Missouri and St. Louis." Yeah, and Michael was holding up a picture there while I spoke.
Yeah, there's I'm holding up a picture of you as in your undercover persona.
Yeah, that's me in 1971, St. Louis mugshot.
Wow.
So he had a
little bit younger.
Yeah, a little bit younger. And a little bit hairier. Anyway, so tell us. No, I mean that.
So was there any ever danger? I mean, is there danger to you and your identity later, or are you able to?
That's a good question, Sandy. I have a chapter in here entitled Close Encounters of the Dangerous Kind. It's a couple knife stabbings, a guy putting a knife at my throat in St. Louis on a night out in the town, and took him down. And then in the Homer G. Phillips Hospital in St. Louis, 2 attempts on my back. And then several other ones, taking bombs apart. One I had in the 7th District in St. Louis. When we approached it, the face on the clock was ticking, but the face was gone. So I hurriedly told a cop, a buddy of mine, Jim Perot, I said, "Hey, hurry up and get me a cut the top off, get me a can of oil." And he brought that, and it was on a stopwatch, on a watch, and I put that in there, and it stopped the mechanism from ticking. and operating. Then I was able to disarm the what turned out to be a fake bomb.
Oh,
But that was
wow.
scary. Nevertheless, I was sweating, and it was in the heart of winter, December.
Oof.
Well, okay. So that's that. Let's talk about. We want to talk most about. I'm going to get to the next two books because they are all fire related and they're about some really important cases. But how do you get this? How do you going to get all these books, Dave? How do you?
Well,
get
you can. Yeah, that's a good question, Mike. You can get them on Amazon, or you can get them directly from me. And if I may, I'll give you my phone number and my email address that you can reach me. And I mail the books to you, and we speak and we connect what you're looking for, what you want. And I've got 3 books, as you know, so I call it my trilogy. And I've got known as the Trilogy Gang. We're good buyers and customers have bought all 3 of them, so I call them my Trilogy Gang. But it's Dave True. The phone number is area code 816.
Well, hold on. Yeah, I tell you what, I will put it up there for you.
She's going to actually put it up on the screen so they can look at it.
So go ahead with, yeah, I'll put it up there for you because I do. Just why don't you say your email address and because I don't know that.
All right. Well, I'll give you the phone number first.
Okay.
816-914-5930.
Okay.
And the email address is True, TRUE, 02 at AOL.com.
Okay, got it. All right, and we'll have it up there on the screen for you.
Yeah, let me repeat that.
No, I got it up on the screen for you.
It's on the screen.
It'll be rolling for you at the bottom.
Can you see it? FireClue guest today, Dave True, 816-914-5930, K-True
02 at AOL. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. There we go.
And so the more that way, that'll save you repeating it later with the books. Now they're also on Amazon. Did you say you can get it on Amazon?
Yes.
And is there? And that's 2 ways you can get them, right? And do you have a Facebook?
I'll put the link to them in the I'll put the link to it when I go to distribute this after we're done.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay. So let's talk about your second book, Mystery of the Six Crosses. That's this one. Now, I was involved in this case myself on the private side, and there it is. And this is about the explosion that killed the 6 Kansas City firefighters all at once, and how the dangers of having explosives that are available to.
Let me summarize that what happened there. In 1988. November 29 at 4:08 a.m., a massive explosion occurred at a construction site in Kansas City, Missouri, on Highway 71. And the firefighters, 6 of them, I call them heroes, were addressing the fire in a trailer, storage trailer, not knowing that it was loaded with 30,000 pounds of ammonium nitrate and fuel oil. An acronym is ANFO, ANFO, and it killed all 6 of them instantly. As you can imagine, a tremendous blast. It was heard all over the Kansas City area, and it rumbled all the way to Warrensburg, Missouri, which is 30 miles away. And it broke windows, doors, shattered foundations. It was a tremendous blast. And 45 minutes later, a second trailer with 32,000 pounds of ANFO detonated. By then, the scene was all cleared away and a command post was set up in safe distance. And we started our investigation. And originally, I was assigned to work on one of the theories. We had 3 of them. The theories were Was it gangster related, ununionized employees at a union site, or was it local area gangsters that lived in the area known as Marlboro in Kansas City area? And then the third one was it the security guards that were guarding that involved in some fashion? We quickly got away from the two theories, and we stayed and focalized on the mob bosses, the mobsters in Marlboro. They were just street level criminals that were notorious in the neighborhoods, alcoholics, druggers, and all they did every day for a living was steal, and that was how they made their money. And they went up there to set the fire, to steal. They couldn't get in the trailers, and in spiteful manners, they set fire to the trailer underneath the brush under there, and the straw and hay that was under there, and it moved up into the trailers, and the trailer annealed, tipped on the front, and the compacting weight of the anvil caused the detonation, killing the 6 firefighters.
Mm-hmm. Was there also a pickup truck right there that they burned in the area of one of the trailers?
Yeah, Mike, they set fire to the construction site guard's pickup truck on 71 Highway as a distraction. And then they went down and set fire to the trailer. And then they ran to their houses, which were just within walking distance from this construction site area. And we focused on them. And 8 years and 3 months later, we got a jury conviction in '97. And that was on a Monday. And on Wednesday, I announced my retirement as a federal agent.
Wow.
And okay, so
that's the story on that one.
That's the story on that one. But the book goes into great detail about the investigation. You even looked at neo-Nazis. I remember that were in Illinois, and also looked at whether or not and he also made sure that the info was separate from the blasting caps because of the detonations, right?
Yeah, it was obviously you would. They had an explosive bunker adjacent to the construction site. It's a HE bunker. It holds the blasting caps in one of them, and then the other one is the high explosives, whether it's initiators, whatever it might be. That was checked out by a firefighter, Luther Hurd, and he came back and said, those are locked up, they're safe. So they assumed that the bunkers, explosive bunkers, was what they were dealing with, away from the trailers they were addressing to put them out, not knowing there was ANFO in the trailers at the time.
Well, what I think is the best thing that came out of it was the placarding. You want to talk about how thereafter the federal government required placarding. Is that correct, on the back of trailers and things, that semi-trailers?
Yeah, that is true, Mike. As a result of this particular explosion and tragedy, they came out with a federal law requiring all trailers to be placarded in some fashion by federal law, designed to tell the people that approach it, the workers, the drivers, and on the truck docks throughout America, what was expected in that trailer, what would possibly could hold.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it be explosive.
About what year was that?
That would have been after the '88 explosion, and between
88.
the conviction in '97 that law was passed through ATF and Congress.
Yeah, and that is really something to this day. When you see those placards on the back of these trailers.
So were you part of getting that passed?
Yeah, and that's one of the few good things that comes out of a tragedy, and it's still in place today. That process, because of course I worked as a security manager at Yellow Trucking, and worked the railroads through my career, and that's all documented in these 3 books collectively.
Wow.
And now, so now we get to talk about this one. I get to show this again because it's got your great face. See that face? See that face here? That's his mugshot for the dossier. So he had to have that in case the bad guys got him. Yeah, that's it.
There you go,
buddy.
Okay.
So
that's enough tragedy for this conversation. Let's move on. That's
right. But here's memoirs of a treasury agent, and so I'm sure that there's some things in there that everybody wants to hear, because I know that there are, because this is fire cases, gun cases too. Your gun cases are in the gangsters one. Go ahead.
Yeah, let me do this. I want to address over here.
Sure.
Would you hold that up? And this is a poster of the firefighters memorial in Kansas City, honoring the Pumper 30 and 41 members, 3 in each.
And where is it in Kansas City?
Yeah, that's Kansas City, in the inner city, by a Crown Center area.
By Crown Center.
Yeah, and the college in Kansas City. Now that's in this second book, and then on the third book, Kathy will hold these up, and this first one will be the facade of the Oklahoma City Federal Building, and what it looked like after the bomb detonated. The trailer of 5,000 pounds of explosives that Timothy McVeigh set there. He was a domestic terrorist. Yeah. And that detonated right below our office. We're on the 9th floor of that, over on my left of the building. And I was assigned to supervise as the team leader 3 of the 5 teams collecting evidence at the scene. And then we had a second group at Fort Riley, Kansas, near where his conspirator had a farm in Kansas. And then we have a second picture here, Kathy will show up, which is the poster of the rear axle of the Ryder truck that hit that car 2 blocks away and then landed in the street. And we've got a couple stories about that axle. One, I went down there and logged it in the next day when I got there. And an AP wire service photographer took a picture of me logging it in and misidentified me as an FBI agent, which set out an interesting response to some of my fellow ATF agents throughout America that I worked with. So that's the axle. And then we got back to the building. My job was to lead the 3 of the 5 teams set up there at the building and the parking lot. And I have storyboards when I speak throughout the Midwest, primarily in the Kansas City and St. Louis area, about my adventures. And I focus right now. I'm focusing on senior living folks throughout the Kansas City area. I've got about 6 of them. I go to each one 3 times and do one book at a time to explain them.
David, let your long-suffering wife put that thing down. And thank you. Thank you, Kathy.
You're back to me. Live with it.
There you are. Poor baby. I feel sorry for her. Go ahead now. Go ahead, David. I know you're doing 3 times. You show them all 3 books. That's right.
Don't talk too much, Michael. I might have to go buy a present for her now.
No, I won't open it.
Yeah, you're gonna pay for half of it, friend. Okay, where are we at?
So you were talking about the Oklahoma City, but is that in this as well, in this book? Talk about all those things in this book?
That I focused on that in the third book, in Memoirs of a Treasury Agent, my investigation of cults, militants, terrorists, arsons, bombings, illegal firearms, and murders with the ATF.
Oh. So you've had a pretty exciting career.
Well, I've got my fingers going taking bombs apart, and I don't have any bullets. I ducked the bullets, and I survived the knife attempts, and lived to write about it. And then I was lucky enough to get published, and I love doing this. Kathy wonders when I'm going to quit writing and come back to civilian life.
Mhm.
I promised her I would, even though I lie a lot. I got a fourth book written. Maybe I'll get it published before the good Lord takes me. But I turned 80 in December, so I wanted to have a book out and say I'm an author published in my 80s.
All right.
Oh yeah, that's great, my friend. And can you release the title of that last book?
Yes, Memoirs of a Treasury Agent.
No, that's
my subtitle I read. And
the next one. The next one.
Trying to goad you into getting the.
I'm with you. I missed that.
The secret.
Well, I missed that, Michael. Keep in mind I'm 80.
Okay.
Yeah, I can. That's going to be titled originally it was going to be the truck detective. And given to me by one of my social buddies. And then I realized I could expand that with my experience working not only on investigative security with trucking, but I also had my hands in the railroads and in the airplanes with Flight 800, which is in this book also. My last chapter is the Oklahoma City bombing in detail. Talks about what we did, what ATF did, is all about ATF, and how we focused on helping solve that case, including testifying at the trials after we put the case together for those years. And then it's the rest of my life throughout Americans. I even had an interesting case in South America that I enjoyed to investigate. It was a fire, if I could tell you about that.
Yeah,
sure.
Okay, well, here's a summary of that. I was up in Iowa working on a trial, and we'd all finished testifying, and then went to closing arguments on two volunteer firefighters that were killed in a arson fire. And I got a call from headquarters that said, "Hey, you need to be in Guayaquil, Ecuador, Monday." And the U.S. attorney at the time became a federal judge, Linda Reed. She said, "Dave, you can go. We're done. You've testified. The jury's got it. We'll call you from down in Ecuador and give you the results of the ruling," which I learned later was guilty of killing two firefighters. And then we get down there, and I'm a little concerned because it's Guayaquil, Ecuador is below Colombia. And I didn't know what we was going to get into. And it turned out to be one of the most enjoyable trips I've taken in my adventures. And we got there and we were assigned to focus on a fire in a provincial drug vault. And all it had in there was drugs and metal file cabinets on each side of this narrow drug vault. And over the years, the methamphetamine we set between those trailers that were pushed back again and again back, and a fire erupted. So we got there and we had to wear masks. It's a very dangerous environment. And we cleared that out after a full 2 days. And as we're about to address the file cabinets, one started behind it. Something was arcing, was cracking and flashing. They've got a zip cord back there, an electric plug. So we quietly got that trailer, that file cabinet out of there, and there was a electric plug, a zip cord I call them, that was arcing and sparking, and the V pattern was just exactly from that plug straight down and then out, and you could just follow the V pattern better than anyone I've ever seen in my career in investigating fires. So that we cleared that out, saved it. And then while we're there, the provincial judge, now keep in mind, we're in South America, and a DEA agent is interpreting for us. And he keeps telling the DEA agent, cerveza, we got cerveza over here for the federals. And I said, wait a minute. He said they can't drink till they're off duty. And as soon as they start their afternoon cerveza routine, we would finish our work and then we'd say, okay, now we're off. Tell the judge we can have a cerveza with him. So that went on for about a week. Then we found our way home.
So you had masks
Nice.
on, so you didn't get high on all the drugs that were in the vault there, right? So
Well, I don't know. I was too high.
yeah, that's probably right from the cerveza. Yeah, right.
No, we had masks on. We were fine.
We're good. We're good
I
boys.
felt like we knew what we were doing, Michael.
That's right. Well, so what was there prosecutions that came out of that from all those drugs that they you said the judge?
Well, as a fire investigator, finding that arcing and sparking, what was the result of that fire? The initiation.
It was accidental, but the
There you go. No, it was accidental.
it was accidental. I know. I mean, the drugs? Was there anybody charged with the drugs?
No, most of them were dead. The drugs have been in there for 20 years.
Oh,
So it was an evolution of putting drugs in there, and obviously all the evidence was gone. It just got smoked up.
oh, right.
Okay, so
not literally though.
Yeah, I understand. Well, coming back to the United States, you worked a couple. We worked a couple things. You talked about the firefighters but we didn't finish up with you got convictions on how many people in that. What, in fact, it was one of the family members that actually you interviewed them and they actually confessed to it, right, and told you who was involved.
Well, the bad group, the five that went to jail and prison, Darlene Edwards got arrested for drugs.
Okay.
And our purpose, she went to jail on that charge, and she was there on a Friday. And I told Agent Harry Lett, I said, check on her over the weekend and let her get to know you and feel comfortable with you. And then Sunday night, Harry called me and said, hey, Dave, we all got to go up to the jail. Darlene wants to talk. I said, she going to talk about the drugs or is she going to talk about the tragic death? He said the tragic death is what she's told the jailer. So we all got up there, me, Bill Forbes, Harry, and we sat her down, started a tape recorder, and videotaped it. And she started talking. And she had come down off her high, so she was somewhat coherent. And she laid out her part of driving two of the other ones up there, leaving out her boyfriend, Frank Shepard, and putting it on Brian Shepard and his buddy, Richard Brown. That's their names. And that was all tape recorded. So that was played to the jury in the jury trial, because she backed up off of it and said, oh, no, I was just telling them what they wanted to hear. Well, she talked on her own. We wouldn't interfere with that. And that's the way you get the truth out of people that a jury can actually believe. And that plus Darlene's daughter, who came in and put all five of them together in the planning meeting the night before they went in there to try to steal. And that iced the cake for the jury to feel comfortable with a conviction of life in prison without any hope of probation. But one guy did get probation and one died in prison. He was a juvenile when he set the fire, and a Supreme Court decision says that if you're a juvenile when you commit a crime that results in death, after 20 years, you're eligible for parole. And so Brian Shepard got out after 20 years.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And okay, so And I was told that it's one of the motivations that they were not only they were stealing from the site and they had been run off by the security guards, so they were mad at them too. Is that correct? As one of the motivations?
Well, not exactly. That was the House of Lloyd arson, where the fire setter that committed a $20 million fire at the House of Lloyd in Grandview, Missouri, was mad at the security guard at the House of Lloyd fire.
Right. Okay. So I was thinking about the other one. I had done an interview where a neighbor had said that they thought that they were mad at the.
Now that's accurate. You know, we had neighbors that gave us good statements, and I know which one you're thinking about. That was next to Darlene's rented house.
Yeah. Right.
Over there in Marlboro. You're exactly right on that one, Michael.
Yeah, so they were mad. Okay, so let's talk about the House of Lloyd one, because I was lucky enough to be involved in that one too. And
the House of Lloyd, what's that?
Yeah.
Well, let me summarize it. Michael was intimately involved in that, along with me as a federal agent. And the reason we could connect on something like that in 1987, in November, was because a law had been passed federally that certain things can be addressed between federal agents and private investigators, such as Mike. And we utilized that, which allowed us to communicate as we were processing through. And what we did there was we got to it, and tremendous fire. And when they addressed that and finally got it out, I brought a team in, and we started working the scene. And it was a difficult one because we had all these huge, very high holders of equipment, of supplies that was all internationally prepared straw and just stuff that would burn instantly.
And those metal racks.
Metal racks is what Mike's talking about. Yeah. And then we learned we had a number of witnesses. So me and a Grandview police photographer videotaped the interviews that we did one at a time, what they seen and where they were standing. And they pointed out that one of the seasonal employees, Andrew Henson, had been seen near the area where the fire started. And so we took a cone and put a stick on it and their name to show us that we had 180 degrees around witnesses, various ones that saw Andrew Henson in that area. And then he tried to, on the way up the steps where the employees were seeing the fire before it really got out of hand and we were evacuated, he told the guard, "Now you got a cuss word, fire." And the guard that had let one of his employees go, three of them went to drink buy alcohol at lunch. It was a daily routine. And when they came back, his friend was let go, seasonal employee, for drinking on the job. Oh. And that irritated Andrew Henson enough to set a fire, probably not knowing he was going to do $20 million worth of damage, which became out one of the two top industrial fires in the United States in 1987.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was a large warehouse that had two sections, and the one that went off, the sprinkler system had not been completed. It was still under repair. I remember this, and it's still being put in, actually installed. And so that was another factor. And of course, like you said, the material that was ignited was like Christmas wreaths and all these things. That was a mail order. The House of Lloyd was a mail order business.
I remember that. That's what I was wondering. I thought that maybe that's what it was.
Very interesting fire. And it was very difficult to work. And we got a tremendous work out of everybody, including Michael and his assistants. And in the end, we went to jury trial 8 years, 3 months later. And But that one was actually 2-3 years. We went to trial, and I had an interesting question posed to me by the prosecutor, Matt Whitworth, who later became a federal judge. And he said, Dave, me and Marietta Parker aren't afraid to prosecute this case if you're not afraid to lose it. I said, well, let's let the jury decide.
That's right. That's exactly
Resulted
right.
in jury conviction.
Yeah.
Right, and it did. And how long did they get? How long did they get?
Yeah, Andrew did about 7 years, is my understanding.
Wow.
You know, in state, you don't always do the time you're sentenced to. You get off for good behavior if you happen to behave, which I found in the Missouri prison, which they called the Big House. There's a couple things happened there. One, everybody that goes in there that I was aware of and wrote about went immediately back to the life of crime.
Wow.
So that's one of the two. And give me a few moments, maybe I'll think of the second one.
So, I mean, obviously he didn't pay anything out of that, right? I mean,
no, he had no money.
right. I was going to say
that's another thing. You don't get. There's only one case that I'm familiar with that I was part of, and that's in the fourth book, Michael, Sandy.
Oh, okay.
And that is one of our employees at Yellow Roadway Trucking, and I'll wax to that and give a little bit away. I'll move up to it. He had his hands on writing and approving checks. Well, he improved enough checks over 5 years to steal $6 million from Yellow Roadway Trucking.
Oh, wow.
And I caught that case, investigated it. After he was identified, after all those years, I said, you need to do a fact factor. And you need to have 2 people approve any one check. And they only had 1. And you can see when you have that opportunity, the thing of theft hits you right away. Well, he did 6 million, and through the insurance policy, I worked in such a way with Secret Service, we got all 6 million back, and it went to Yellow Freight in a form of 1 check, which shot their stocks up pretty high in one day. And that was an interesting day. I got a copy of that check.
Oh,
That's fantastic. Now
I didn't cash it though.
No, yeah, well, we'll be looking forward to that book. But I want to bring up one more from this book, the one that we want you to be able to sell here, and that's Memoirs of a Treasury Agent, and that is. You're gonna guess which one this is. This is the Milk Barn.
Milk Barn in Joplin in St. Joe, Missouri.
That's exactly right. The case that I handed you with a bow, I might add.
Yeah,
but
and that story will never die as long as you're there.
Go ahead, tell them. You want to tell them about the Milk Barn?
That's more accurate than false. But as a federal agent, I was involved. Michael had it as a private insurance investigator and fire. And he had this one person that was reluctant to tell him anything. And as we do when we can exchange information under that federal law, he gave me his name and some other people. And of course, when you're a federal agent, you become a different stature than private investigator. And he got broke down pretty quick and gave it away and a girlfriend too of how the perpetrator set the fire and how the Milk Barn burned. So working collectively together with federal, private, state, and local, we got a lot done in my career in 46 years altogether, private and police.
And I know you did, David. And of course, I've got a little bit of a different kind of idea what happened there, because since this guy was overlooking the place and he saw the guys pour the accelerant into the building and all this other stuff. And then like David said, He would not talk to me, but I said, you talk to him. And what happens? 30 seconds, the guy he calls him up. He left his card on the door. The guy called him up and came through with all of it. Me, I couldn't get him to say squeak to me. So there you are.
Yeah, and he was a guy named White, and he was afraid he was involved in some way. And in fact, he would have been if he had not talked about watching and observing a felony fire arson. And so he gave it up. He testified at the trial. And there's another story there with Marietta Parker and Matt Whitworth, who also had this case. And the arsonist, who I won't name, his daughter, his adopted daughter, stepdaughter, watched him set the fire, light on the roof, and she was reluctant to talk, obviously, for obvious reasons. She was about 11 years old. And so Marietta talked to her, and she explained to Marietta, because she was more comfortable with a female than a male. And she was an excellent witness, even though the fire setter had threatened her not to talk. That if she talked, she was in trouble. And of course, the girl's mother was very concerned, and I appreciate that. But eventually they came in and cooperated. And he was a twice convicted felon before this arson fire. And he got a hefty sentence in prison after a third felony.
Yeah, you had testified in that that as to the cause and origin of the fire. Did you not? Was that?
Yes. Yeah, I did. I testified as an expert witness, having my background, and the judge, because we went federal with that, and the judge was allowed to approve me of a expert witness in that particular trial.
Fantastic. And well, when Marietta Parker had me on notice, and I sat in the hallway like you usually do for a few hours. And then they said, we won't need you. So I went back to my office, and then I was sitting in my office, and suddenly here comes a process server, and the defense called me. Now, they've never talked to me at all. The defense called me. And I'm thinking, what in God's name do they think I'm going to do? I'm going to try, I'm going to bury him and I'm going to say the same thing. So I went in there, and this is a fun part for David. I used to talk about this. So what happens is they put me on the stand. Yes, I swear. Did you investigate this fire? Yes, I did. And our clients there were two of them. Our clients were very cooperative, weren't they, with you? By giving statements and everything. And I thought about it, and I said, I don't think lying is being cooperated with. And they didn't know what I was going to say. So that's a cautionary tale that you're supposed to know what the person is going to say when you ask a question. And this is what's funny about this case. That first of all, that shut them up, and they had no further questions except the prosecutor did. He stood up. So you took their statements. Did they? Yes. And did they lie to you? And yes, they did, because they had told me that they were at different places, etc. And then he had no more questions. And David's sitting and this is what's funny about it. David's sitting at the prosecution table. Now, naturally, this is in front of a jury. You can't go high five that, yippee, but he gave me this kind of sideways grin. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Sign language in a sense.
That's exactly right. So, but he did such a great job on this, and they got some time, didn't they? Both of them.
Yeah. The one guy, the white that came in, he didn't get anything, and then there was the fire setter's girlfriend gave a great statement. She went on the stand. She was an excellent witness, and it was a circumstantial case, even though we had witnesses. But the jury wants to know, always would like to know the motive behind the crime, the criminal act. And anytime we can put in the motive through witnesses, I had another one early in my career that I'll talk about if we have time. Uh, I had a bombing homicide in Fairfield, Illinois, uh, where the bomber
Mhm.
blew up his father
Oh.
with a booby trap bomb, 7 sticks of dynamite with a rifle on top of it. When you picked a rifle up, you would set that off. And when he lifted that, the booby trap went off and killed him. He died on the way to the hospital. And our first witness, when we started doing the interview process,
Mhm.
was the victim's wife. And she gave a statement that she was having sex with the killer, and that the most recent time they had sex before the homicide was the day before. And you talk about putting an opening witness on the stand and giving the jury the motive. Even though you have to prove it, but when you give it to them, that was easy for the jury to handle.
Wow.
But this was a family member. I mean, was his stepson or was his real
It
son?
was his natural father and his
Stepmother.
wife. That was his second wife, and he was having sex with the second wife.
Oh my God! So
That was the motive.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's and I think the jury kind of went for that immediately.
So I have a question for both of you. How, I mean, not that I want to give any, I know that we don't give away any inside information, but have you ever had someone that you investigated or interviewed and you knew they were lying, but you couldn't really tell by their facial what they were doing or how they were acting, and you couldn't prove?
Do you mean have we ever bought a story that that was not real, and then later found out that they were lying to us and came back to them?
Yes.
Yeah. That's anybody that says they're infallible and knows everything. Now, hopefully, you keep that to a minimum. That you go for but you can have a bad day and you can go for the wrong story and then find out later it's that you went for it and then come back and confront them and generally it works out well. And I've had people. David has more people. As a police detective, I had a lot of people confess to me. As a private investigator, I haven't had as many, but I've had a few still. And but David's had far more. He was known as a magnificent interviewer.
So Dave, well, then that springboards me into the question, Dave. So how do you put somebody you're interviewing at ease, like to trust you or to open up to you? I mean, is there a certain way that you do that, or?
Yes, there is, and I'll detail that to you so that it's clear. At the federal level, ATF wanted me to write the interviewing techniques for the entire agency at Academy at Glencoe, Georgia, FLETC. And so they sent me to every interviewing school that was known in America to prepare for putting that together. And one of them was how to detect facial recognition when you can find the lies behind the faces. And that was Andre Avian Sapar in Phoenix, Arizona. That I spent a week with him. And then he helped me with 2 cases where he said, this person's lying and here's why, through facial recognition. Now there's a great example of Mike's question that was presented. And that's good why 2 people are talking and not simultaneously, but giving the other person a springboard to think about something that may not come up through that second person. And that really creates more good answers for the interviewer, Sandy, like yourself, to make a decent podcast, as I hope we're doing today.
I think we are. And by the way, I learned a lot from my interactions with David, and I teach a course, and that's what he's talking about: body language, nonverbal cues of deception, things of that nature. And we taught these all over the place. David is still out there going to seminars, and so am I. I'm teaching, and in fact of the matter is, we're going to Israel soon to speak to their Tel Aviv Bar Association and teach the judges. So a lot of things I've learned in cooperation with David, and I already knew how to drink beer, but I would have learned that for sure. Okay.
Well, you guys are proving 80 is the new 60. So there you go.
Yeah, that's what it is. 80s the new 60s, and I'm not quite there yet, but I'm working on it.
I know you're not. I didn't say you were.
Yeah, okay. But anyway, no, see, I don't mind that, because see, my body still, I just got married a year ago, so everything's working. So there you go.
Oh my.
David.
And I've congratulated him before.
Yes, you did. And thank you very much, David.
This is not my dating show. I do a dating show, but this is not it.
And I said a prayer for the new wife.
And thank you. Tell me, is there anything you'd like to say in conclusion to the audience here?
Well, I think we've handled quite a bit in a short period of time, and there's always more that you wish you could have got in, and I'll find that as soon as I get off.
Well, once the new book comes out, then there'll be another interview. So.
Oh yeah.
That fourth book will have everything in, other than some of the secrets I gave away here on this talk. And I want you folks to have a good time in Israel. And I hope you can show this tape over there, possibly.
We might.
And I put the information to get his books again on the bottom of the screen. And plus, I will have more information at the end of the show.
That's great. And I enjoyed this, as I always do. And Mike's right. I just did a senior living home Friday. And I went and visited one yesterday. I always like to know where they're at before I go, one in Martin City. And I'm doing that one next Monday. And I'm really focusing on senior living, because being 80 years old, they actually understand what I'm saying.
Well, hey, I do have a question. Last question from me.
There's never a last question, Andy.
Do you have like a book club that people, read your books and meet and discuss your books? Do you have anything like that?
We have. I did one recently with a book club in Lakewood, where I live here in Lee Summit, Missouri. And there's book clubs. I've learned there's book clubs, and usually they're smaller groups. They're a group of 5-10 people that get together, and they go from house to house and enjoy each other's. And they each one of them, each time might do one particular book, or two of them might do what book they read, and then they share that. And through that, I've had some people buy my books through those gatherings. So yeah, I'm very familiar with the book clubs of America.
Okay.
Well, my last question is this. I know you have some storyboards that you put up at seminars and things of that nature. Are you open to having like IAA, International Association of Arson Investigators chapters, contact you to speak about your books, or to be there or sell your books or anything like that?
Yeah, we've done that through the years. I've been a member of IAAI International since the beginning. I went to your inauguration in St. Louis back in 2001 or 2, I believe. And I did a presentation there for Donna that you guys asked me to do. So yeah, I'm very interested in that since I belong to these organizations.
Well, the next ITC is in St. Louis. The next one is.
The ITC is coming back to St. Louis next year. Yeah, and I'll be there, and you were there when I was sworn in 2004.
2000.
Yeah, that's right. And so, if anybody wants to have David come by, you've got the information on how to speak to him and how to get his books. If you read these books, you'll want him to come. He's full of a lot of stories.
Yes. So it's so interesting life you've led. That is amazing.
It is. It has been and there's one thing about it as we reach a conclusion here. There's not a moment that I would change about my life as a federal agent and a professional, and the people I've interacted with. I met some of the most wonderful people that anyone could hope to meet and work with, and getting together with each of us working hand in hand has brought so many positive results. I can't account for this third book of mine has over hundreds of ATF agents in it, and I try to name everyone I can remember and make sure they're in the book by name and documented.
Right.
Memoirs of a Treasury Agent. Here it is.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you, David. Thank you for being here. Thank your lovely wife for holding up the boards and staying with
We
you.
nodded. She nodded. Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
I appreciate this. I guess we're getting close to time, I would imagine.
This is it. Yes.
Okay, well,
Yep.
then
Thank you so much for being our guest today. And like I said, we'll put some links in here to his Amazon, and then as you saw scrolling on how you can contact him directly to order his books. And we will also be we're sponsored by a couple of people, and we will show that in a moment. So thank you.
I've got one final thing.
Sure.
I forgot
Sure.
about the books. When I sell them, for me, and I've got several hundred of each one always here. I sign every book I sell, and then I personalize it to who it's going to, whether it's a gift, whether it's the individual person, husband and wife. I detail that. I'm very attuned to getting it right when you sign a book.
That's great. Yeah, I have one that says my name on it from you. So thank you so much.
Thanks for the commercial.
All right.
You're welcome.
All right. We will see you guys next time on FireClue.
Thank you. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye. Goodbye. Nice talking.